The day started with the sharp, sterile smell of the hospital seeping into my nostrils. My daughter, Alina, lay in a white hospital bed, her tiny frame dwarfed by the tubes and machines keeping her alive. She was only 8 years old, but the innocence in her eyes had been dimmed by the relentless grip of leukemia. I sat by her bedside, clutching her frail hand as the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor filled the silence. My husband, Daniel, stood by the window, his tall frame silhouetted against the pale morning light. His face was a storm of emotions, fear, anger, and exhaustion. The doctor's words still echoed in my mind. We need to proceed with a bone marrow transplant as soon as possible. Without it, Alina may not survive the next 3 months. My heart had sunk to the pit of my stomach. The cost of the procedure was staggering, $80,000 up front, not including the post-surgery care. Daniel and I had nowhere near that amount. We had been scraping by, juggling bills and loans since Alina's diagnosis. But there was hope. Daniel's parents, wealthy, influential, and obsessed with appearances, had more than enough to cover the expenses. They owned several businesses, lived in a mansion, and never blinked at spending extravagantly on parties and luxury vacations. They'll help, I had whispered to Daniel that night as Alina slept. They have to. This is their granddaughter. Daniel had nodded, though doubt clouded his eyes. His relationship with his parents was complicated. They'd never fully accepted me, believing I wasn't good enough for their only son. Still, this was life and death. Surely, they wouldn't turn away now. 2 days later, we sat in his parents' lavish living room, the gold-trimmed furniture and sparkling crystal chandeliers mocking our desperation. His mother, Florence, perched on a velvet chair, perfectly poised in her designer dress. Beside her, his father, Bernard, sipped wine casually, as though we were merely discussing the weather. I held Alina's latest medical report in my trembling hands, my voice cracking as I explained her condition. The doctors say the transplant is her only chance. We just need help with the cost. Please, she's your granddaughter. She needs you. There was a pause. Florence exchanged a look with Bernard, then set her wineglass down delicately. I'm sorry, dear, she said smoothly, but we simply can't get involved in this, financially. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. Can't get involved? Florence, we're talking about Alina's life. Bernard sighed, leaning back in his chair. You have to understand, Nia, he said, his voice cold and measured, this isn't just about money. Daniel made his choices when he married you against our advice. We can't keep bailing you two out whenever life gets difficult. My chest tightened. Bailing us out? We've never asked you for anything before. And yet here you are now, Florence cut in, her tone sharp. We sympathize, truly, but our funds are already allocated. Allocated to what? Daniel demanded, his voice rising. What could possibly be more important than your granddaughter's life? Florence hesitated, then said with a smug little smile, your sister's wedding, of course. You know how significant this event is for our family. We've already invested $250,000 to ensure it's perfect. My mouth fell open. $250,000 for a wedding? My voice broke on the last word. It's a societal affair, Bernard said matter-of-factly. There will be dignitaries, business partners, the press. It must be flawless. I felt like I was suffocating. So you'll let your granddaughter die while you throw a lavish party? Florence's eyes hardened. This conversation is over. We've made our decision. I stared at them, numb, while Daniel's hands clenched into fists at his sides. He opened his mouth, but Florence's next words cut him down completely. If you had married someone more suitable, perhaps we'd feel differently. But choices have consequences. That night, Daniel paced our small living room like a caged animal. I can't believe them, he muttered, his voice hoarse. They'd rather let Alina die than admit they were wrong about you. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the floor, Alina's faint laughter echoing in my memory. "We'll figure something out," I whispered, though my chest felt hollow. "We have to." But deep down, I knew we were out of time. The next weeks were a blur of desperation. We tried fundraising, reaching out to charities, even selling our few valuable possessions. But the amount we needed was impossibly high. Meanwhile, Alina's health deteriorated rapidly. One evening, as I sat by her bed, she looked up at me with tired eyes and whispered, "Mommy, am I going to heaven soon?" The words shattered me. I kissed her forehead, choking back sobs. "No, baby. Mommy's going to fix everything. I promise." But it felt like a lie. Then came the breaking point. Florence called unexpectedly, her tone bright and cheerful. "Nia, darling, I hope you and Daniel will be attending the wedding tomorrow. It would mean so much to the family." I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "You want us to attend a $250,000 wedding while our daughter is lying in a hospital bed fighting for her life?" "Appearances matter, dear," she said smoothly. "And besides, it's important for people to see a united family." I nearly screamed at her, but a thought struck me like lightning, a dark, desperate idea. "We'll be there," I said quietly, surprising even myself. Daniel stared at me in disbelief when I hung up. "What are you doing, Nia? Why would we go?" I met his gaze, my voice steady and cold. "Because if they want to play games with appearances, we'll give them a show they'll never forget." The wedding was a spectacle beyond anything I'd ever imagined. The grand hall glittered with chandeliers, ice sculptures, and floral arrangements that probably cost more than our entire annual income. Guests mingled in designer clothes, sipping champagne as a string quartet played softly in the background. I wore a simple black dress, stark against the opulence around me. Daniel walked beside me, his jaw set, his eyes dark with barely contained rage. Florence spotted us and swept over, her face lighting up with a rehearsed smile. "Ah, you made it. You both look lovely." I forced a smile. We wouldn't miss it for the world. As the ceremony began, I watched Florence and Bernard bask in the admiration of their wealthy friends. They looked like royalty, untouchable and proud. But they didn't know what was coming. When it was time for speeches, Florence took the microphone first, gushing about family values and unity. The crowd clapped politely. Then Bernard spoke about legacy and honor. Finally, it was Daniel's turn. He stood there, gripping the microphone tightly, his voice trembling with anger as he began. "I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but after everything that's happened, I feel compelled." The room fell silent. Florence and Bernard exchanged wary glances. "Our daughter, Alina, is fighting for her life in the hospital right now," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "We begged my parents for help. They refused." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Florence's smile froze. "They spent $250,000 on this wedding," Daniel continued, "while their own granddaughter lies in a hospital bed, possibly dying, because they decided appearances were more important than family." The room erupted into whispers and shocked murmurs. Florence tried to interject, but Daniel held up his hand. "We came here tonight not to celebrate, but to expose the truth. These are the people you admire, the people you do business with. Remember that." Florence's face turned crimson. Bernard looked ready to explode. And then, before anyone could react, I stepped forward. "If anyone here has the heart to save an innocent child's life," I said, my voice trembling but loud, "please. We need help. She needs a transplant immediately. Her name is Alina." A stunned silence followed. Then, a woman stepped forward, Bernard's business rival, a powerful figure in the community. "I'll cover the cost," she said firmly. "No child should suffer because of pride." The room erupted into applause and shocked murmurs. Florence's eyes widened in horror. And just like that, the power shifted. As Daniel and I left the hall, holding hands, I glanced back at Florence and Bernard. Their empire of appearances had crumbled in a single night. But this wasn't over. For now, though, my daughter had a chance to live, and that was all that mattered. Alina's surgery was scheduled within a week. The woman who stepped forward at the wedding, Madame Chica, Bernard's most formidable business rival, paid every cent without hesitation. The hospital staff worked tirelessly, and when the day came, I sat outside the operating room, my hands clasped so tightly they went numb. Daniel paced back and forth like a man possessed, whispering prayers under his breath. Hours dragged on like centuries until finally, the doctor emerged, a tired but triumphant smile on his face. "The procedure went well," he announced. "Alina is stable. It'll be a long recovery, but she has a real chance now." My legs gave way, and I sank to the floor, sobbing with relief. Daniel knelt beside me, his own tears falling freely. For the first time in months, hope didn't feel like a lie. But that hope was laced with something darker: anger, betrayal, and the bitter knowledge that my in-laws had forced us to this point. News of the wedding incident spread like wildfire. Social media buzzed with videos of Daniel's speech, captured by guests and leaked online. Headlines screamed about the hypocrisy of Bernard and Florence, the wealthy couple who'd spent a fortune on a wedding while refusing to save their own granddaughter. Their pristine reputation crumbled overnight. Investors pulled out of Bernard's business ventures. Florence's charity events were cancelled as sponsors fled. The family name, once revered, became a punchline. 2 days after Alina's surgery, Florence appeared at the hospital. Her perfectly styled hair was slightly disheveled, her face pale and drawn. "Nia," she said softly, almost pleading. "May I see her?" I crossed my arms, my body blocking the doorway. "You didn't want to see her when she was dying." "Why now?" Florence flinched, her composure cracking. I made a mistake. I thought protecting our image was more important, but now everything is ruined." "Ruined because people found out the truth," I snapped. "Not because you cared about Alina." She swallowed hard, tears pooling in her eyes. "Please, Nia. She's my granddaughter. I just want to make things right." I hesitated, torn between rage and the faintest flicker of pity. Finally, I stepped aside. "1 minute," I said coldly. "Then you leave." Florence approached Alina's bed, her hands trembling. Alina was still unconscious, her small chest rising and falling with the steady rhythm of machines. Florence reached out but stopped short of touching her. "I'm so sorry, darling," she whispered, her voice breaking. For a brief moment, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. But forgiveness was a luxury I wasn't ready to give. Later that evening, Bernard called Daniel. His voice, usually commanding and arrogant, was strained with desperation. "Son," he said, "you need to help us. The businesses are collapsing. Chica is seizing every opportunity to destroy us. We're drowning." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You mean the same Chica who saved our daughter's life? The woman you've hated for years? Maybe she's not the villain you always made her out to be." "Daniel, please," Bernard pleaded. "You're our only hope. Without you, everything we built will be lost." Daniel's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Funny. You once said choices have consequences. Well, this is yours." He hung up, leaving Bernard in stunned silence. As Alina slowly recovered, Daniel and I realized something profound. We no longer owed his parents anything, not respect, not loyalty, not silence. They had chosen their image over their blood, and now, for the first time, we had the power. But power, I would soon learn, can be a dangerous thing. Weeks passed, and Alina grew stronger every day. Watching her smile again, hearing her giggle as she played with her stuffed animals, it felt like witnessing a miracle. The hospital staff called her the little fighter, and she truly was. But while Alina healed, my in-laws' empire lay in ruins. Bernard's companies were hemorrhaging money, his partners abandoning him like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Florence's social circle had completely turned on her, their once loyal friends whispering behind her back. And yet, instead of remorse, there was only desperation. One evening, Florence and Bernard appeared at our doorstep unannounced. Daniel stiffened the moment he saw them, his protective stance instinctive. "We don't want any trouble," Bernard began, his voice trembling with uncharacteristic humility. We need to talk." I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorway. "Talk? About what? You made it very clear before where your priorities were." Florence's eyes brimmed with tears as she stepped forward. "Nia, please. We know we've wronged you. We've wronged Alina. But everything is gone now. Our businesses, our standing, everything we've worked for our whole lives. And you want our help to fix it?" Daniel interrupted, his voice like ice. Bernard swallowed hard. "Yes. Daniel, you've always had a sharp business mind. If you return to the company and help us stabilize things, we can rebuild. You're the only one who can save us." I almost laughed at the irony. Months ago, they had refused to lift a finger to save our child's life. Now, they were begging us to save theirs. "Why should we?" I asked, my tone sharp. "When we needed you most, you chose a party over your granddaughter's life. You turned your backs on us. So tell me, why should we do any different?" Florence clasped her hands together, her voice breaking. "Because we have nothing left but family. Please, Nia. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but we can't survive without you." For a moment, the room was silent except for the soft hum of Alina's breathing monitor in the background. I glanced at Daniel, whose face was unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "I'll help you rebuild. But under one condition." Bernard's head shot up. "Anything, son. Name it." "From now on, our family comes first," Daniel said firmly. "That means respect for Nia, love for Alina, and no more decisions based on appearances or status. If you ever treat us like we're beneath you again, I walk away, and I won't come back." Florence nodded eagerly through her tears. "Of course. We'll do better, I swear it." Over the next several months, Daniel worked tirelessly to stabilize his parents' businesses. Slowly, the family's fortune began to recover, though never to its former glory. Bernard and Florence were forced to face the very people they had once looked down upon, humbled and exposed. But the real transformation was in our relationship. They began visiting Alina regularly, bringing her small gifts and genuine smiles. At first, I was skeptical, but over time, I saw glimpses of true change. Perhaps losing everything had opened their eyes in a way words never could. One evening, as Florence tucked Alina into bed, she looked at me with tearful sincerity. "I used to think money was the most important thing," she admitted softly. "But when we almost lost her, I realized how wrong I was. Family isn't about appearances or wealth. It's about love and sacrifice. And I nearly learned that lesson too late." Her words struck me deeply. In that moment, I understood something vital. Sometimes people must be broken before they can truly rebuild, not just their fortunes, but their hearts. Alina survived because someone outside our bloodline chose compassion over pride. Bernard and Florence learned humility because their empire crumbled. As for me, I vowed never to forget this truth: money can build castles, but only love can save lives. And sometimes, the real wealth of a family isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in the choices we make when it matters most.